Hello. And welcome to Modern Media Review, the podcast that reviews the modern media, but also really mourns a lost age of excellence. Confessions of a Window Cleaner, The Good Life, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, things like that we've lost, and we want to get back, at least get the sense of them back. Trying to do that, I'm Robin Gibson.
Yeah, I'm Sean Gollogly.
And so, for episodes 30 and 31 of Modern Media Review,
we're going on a bit of a nostalgia fist.
A nostalgia fest, I think. Like the rest of the world is at the moment. And
we're going to hit you in the solar plexus with a nostalgia fist.
Oh, you have to, because you got to remember that nostalgia, for those of us who nostalgically study Latin,
like Boris Johnson.
Yeah, is derived from pain, the alga bit of it anyway. And I think we're going to be starting, because we've just seen it, with Quentin Tarantino's ode to all things LA.
Circa 69, I think.
Yeah, sort of Hollywood tribute, called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
With ... in it.
Which suggests a fairy tale.
It suggests Once Upon a Time in the West. That's what it suggests, doesn't it?
And a fairy tale.
Yeah.
Which, if you've seen the ending, you'll know.
We haven't seen the ending yet. Well, we have. We're not going to talk about the ending.
Should we start at the beginning?
Start at the beginning with the film.
First?
Yeah, the film first. Yeah.
Okay. It's Tarantino's 9th film, and apparently he's saying that he's only going to make 10 and he's going to retire. So
we've all heard that before.
Yeah, Elton John. So the media are in a right tiz about this, and they're calling it his masterpiece, which I'm not so sure about.
Well, I don't think it was a masterpiece. I thought it was a bit self-indulgent.
It's massively self-indulgent. I mean, this guy, fair play, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, not so sure about the Kill Bill trilogy, not so sure about Inglourious Basterds.
I didn't even know there were 3 in Kill Bill. I only got up to number 2.
Well, it's like the third side on Sandinista for The Clash.
You mean the 6th side, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Third record.
Yeah. Which, are you nostalgic for that?
Not at all, no. I mean, he's been given free range here, as you said.
Yeah, not only that, it's all the things that allow you self-indulgent he's been given, which is complete free reign. He's like some little kid who's overdosed on pop and is off his face on E-numbers.
Pop culture.
Pop culture. And has always been obsessed with pop culture, but now there's no one there to filter him.
No, I know. He's been given so much free reign that as the Almighty, which reminds me a bit of the Lord's Prayer, our movie, which art like heaven, Hollywood be thy name. Let Tarantino come, his will be done in studio, as in LA.
That's very impressive, Robert.
Yeah, I didn't write it. It's from Oil, a very good novel by Upton Sinclair. Written nostalgically about 100 years ago, I think.
I'm nostalgic for that period 100 years ago. Rickets, diphtheria.
This nostalgia, we'll get onto nostalgia later. The point is that this is a self-indulgent movie, isn't it?
Or like a band, say, that produce a coke-fuelled third album. I mean,
do you think it's coke-fuelled?
No,
He's probably quite disciplined, Tarantino. I doubt if he is coke-fuelled.
But no, I was just making the point because it reminded me of that, and especially the reviews for this film, reminded me of the reviews when Oasis, at the height of their powers, released the much anticipated Be Here Now.
Much anticipated and much derided.
But not at the time. When it was released, everyone declared it a masterpiece. Like this, like The Emperor's New Clothes. I mean, I
wasn't aware people would call this a masterpiece.
I beg to differ.
I only saw it this afternoon. I'm not a movie guy, really, you know.
Well, we've had people like The Times, Guardian, Telegraph, NME, various organs of good taste. Well, I know you're a sounds man for good reason. But yeah, things like dazzling, masterpiece, sensational, glorious, brilliant, thrilling. Now, that could be one word taken out of context.
It could be, yeah, not quite a masterpiece. Yeah. Hardly thrilling. I do that all the time. Look, they had some good points, but I'll be honest, for a very, very, very long film, it didn't seem as long as I thought it might.
Oh man, it was interminable.
But it was baggy, wasn't it? It was very It was It was as baggy as the 38-inch flares I used to have in the 70s. Made a very thin material.
Polyester?
Yeah, a tough guy could just tear them from ankle to hip with one rip.
What, and expose your white jockeys?
Absolutely.
Which is not a good look.
It was far too baggy.
Absolutely fair, and so slow-paced.
Nothing happened.
It was almost like it was in slow motion.
Yeah.
And the pity is that
Normally I struggle with the plot, even in the simplest film. But I was going, wait a minute. I'm not confused by anything here.
I'm bang up to date on
There's
this.
a couple of guys mooching around in a car, one acting, one not, and they were very good at being those two guys.
Yes, the point being that it's a stellar cast. So you've got Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, who we'll get onto afterwards because I've got a massive bone to pick with Tarantino, and I'm sure he's going to be on the phone asking my opinion any minute now. So if the phone goes in between us, Robin, it's probably him.
Probably him, but we switched our phones off just to avoid calls from Tarantino.
Can't get him off the bloody phone.
The other thing it reminded me of, weirdly, was Spinal Tap. Because suddenly, these guys are like meant to have had a history in movies. Movies, that's what they've had a history in. And half of the first half was like kind of parodies of old westerns and cop shows and war movies.
Yeah, like Bonanza and High Chaparral.
It wasn't even a good name, Bounty Law. No one would have called it that. But these were long parodies, whole scenes from these fictitious movies.
Well, not only was that a parody, which was deliberate.
It wasn't funny either. The Spinal Tap parodies
was
when
funny.
They were a psychedelic band, they were funny.
But he's become a parody of himself. All his in-jokes, his cliches, his funny little asides and all the rest of it. We've seen them all. We've been to the show. We've seen what the Wizard of Oz does. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I always say when a new Tarantino comes out, go back and have a look at Scorsese's back catalogue. It's all style, no substance. And, you know, what is all the stuff with the shoes and the drinks? Every time someone steps out of a car or into an airport, you see their heels. Who cares about their heels? One guy's wearing cowboy boots, the other isn't.
And have you got time to be looking in the background for various types of cereal, coffee, foods from the 60s and 70s? And by the way, how old is this man?
The same age as us, I believe.
Yeah, so
about 30.
This whole film is set in LA in '69, just ahead of the Manson cult murders of Sharon Tate, J. Sebring, and a couple of other people who unfortunately aren't as famous as them.
Well, let's cut to the chase here, right? We've got about 2 hours of two blokes mooching around in a car and doing stuff on movie sets. In the meantime, also in the interim, they totally gratuitously take the piss out of Bruce Lee for no reason whatsoever. I think it was good that they got Fergal Sharkey to play Bruce Lee. Pray Bruce Lee, is that a Freudian slip there of linguistic pejorative something or other?
But the point is that it was borderline racist, this Bruce Lee thing.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that subsequently his daughter has kicked up a fuss about this, understandably, saying this is a disgraceful, one-eyed, slanted portrayal of my father. And this obviously has pricked Tarantino because he said, well, I got this from an account of his ex-wife's life with him, which is always going to be on the good side, I'd say, an ex-wife writing about her husband. And then he said, and anyway, it's just fiction. But can you have it both ways?
The film's not really, it's fiction, but it's pertaining to actual events. So as I said, cut to the chase, they've mooched around, taking the piss out of Bruce Lee, portrayed women's ciphers, alpha mailed it through the whole film.
Now, Margot Robbie, who plays Sharon Tate, is a brilliant actor, no doubt about it. But for all the quality dialogue she was given, or opportunities to shine, of which there were none, you might as well have had a mannequin with a Sharon Tate / Margot Robbie face mask and just wheeled it through each scene.
Well then, we get all this, mooching around, bad women, bad Bruce Lee, and then we get to the final sort of half an hour, which is mayhem, where he tries to subvert history and have the murderers killed instead of the murderees.
So what actually happens is that Sharon Tate gets it. Nothing ever happens.
No.
Which was sort of interesting, but before that we have this scene of untold violence where the character that Brad Pitt plays and Leonardo DiCaprio play engage with the Manson cult members and basically wipe them out in some sort of like flame-throwing poolside frenzy, which I thought was a little bit, again, I don't know if it was a nod to Batman and Robin in 1960s Adam West type violence.
The dog chewed one of them up. The dog was good.
But it might as well have had kapow and blam on it.
The only thing I was glad about that final scene was that when Brad Pitt's character had an acid trip, they didn't actually give you an acid trip. However, psychedelic swirly lights and
stuff. They did give
He just looked at the can opener and went, oh, this is great. That's what an acid trip's actually like, looking at a can opener.
Well, I wouldn't condone your activities, Robin.
I'm just talking from what I've read.
But the violence, for me, the violence was laughable. And it reminded me, especially the bit...
It was strong, bloody violence, it said at the start, by the way.
Well, maybe...
It was bloody. It was strong. He smashed that woman's head off the counter about 25 times. She wouldn't have had a head left if it was real.
I thought it was cartoonish.
So it was cartoonish.
And the bit in the pool reminded me, I don't know if you've ever seen Showgirls, directed by the genius that is Paul Verhoeven.
I see very few films, and that's one of the ones I've made it a point not to see.
Well, within that film, there's a scene which has been voted worst ever sex scene, where it has this girl engaging in carnal activities in a pool, where she's slapping the water like a fish.
Oh, that's just like what happened.
And this reminded me very strongly of that, which was...
Well, at the end, I thought, obviously, as you said earlier on, this is meant to be his masterpiece. Now, when I went into the cinema, right, it's Clapham Picture House, probably quite a cinephile, whatever the word is, type of audience. London. I was the first one in there, right? And the second person who came in was a woman who said, "Is this the Brad Pitt movie?" Shows how much you're going for the auteur Tarantino's masterpiece, isn't it? Is it the Brad Pitt movie? She didn't care what one it was.
Well, I would have been more impressed if she said, "Is this the DiCaprio movie?" Because his seminal work, obviously, being Titanic.
I did like it when they put a moustache on DiCaprio for his actor character, because it made him look grown up. Because even though he must be about 40 or something, but now he still looks like a wee lad to me. He's never kind of grown into himself.
Well, I like DiCaprio. I think he's a talented actor who has an anchor round his neck, which was Titanic and Beach and things like that. Uh-huh. The same thing with Brad Pitt, being a beautiful man, removed. Like an albatross.
Brad Pitt, I don't recognise actors, and I like not recognising them because then I believe in the character. See, if I didn't know that was Brad Pitt, I wouldn't have recognised him. I hate it when you're watching a film or something, somebody goes, "Oh yeah, he was in Coronation Street." Or
is that not that Michelle Collins out of EastEnders?
That's the whole problem with me, is surely you're meant to believe in the characters.
Which didn't you think when they were showing someone out the Mamas and Papas that it was Michelle Collins out of EastEnders?
No, I got the name wrong, admittedly. I got the name wrong. Anyway, masterpiece or not, the point of the podcast, the point what the film made us think about is nostalgia. And it's a weird nostalgia, because as you said, Quentin Tarantino is no older than us. He's only 30 odd. And this is nostalgia.
30 odd?
Yes, roughly.
21, I think.
This is a weird nostalgia that is happening all over now. And we're going to do this in this episode and the next episode. Nostalgia for things that people don't remember.
Well, nostalgia for things that only happened a few days ago, according to the Daily Mirror.
Ah, yes, but that's there's nostalgia and then there's accuracy. One doesn't necessarily lead to the other.
Well, would you imagine that the Daily Mirror, being a national newspaper, would be, you could read something and fairly trust in it?
In the old days when they checked stuff, yeah.
Well, basically, they're doing a chat about this film and saying Sharon Tate infamously murdered on August 8th, 2019, which I'm surprised didn't make the news.
Well, I'm surprised that you haven't corrected it yet.
Well, they're not the only culprits, because weren't you looking at the BFI website?
Yeah, the BFI website had a particularly tragic caption for the actor.
I should laugh.
The actor who plays Sharon Tate, forgotten her name.
Margot Robbie.
And the caption said Sharon Tate as Margot Robbie in Once Upon a Time, which I thought was particularly sad considering that Sharon herself was an actor.
Well, maybe this was a nod to Tarantino's rewriting of history.
Is he rewriting history or is he just tapping into this?
Well, as you were saying,
Woodstock, it's all over the telly, and people seem to be, it's the 50th anniversary of Woodstock, and people seem to be tapping into something in a nostalgic way. Obviously, some of the talking heads and people who introduce these things,
like Joe Swash,
were they? Yeah, and Sue Pollard, and Hal Cruttenden, comedian, who I saw last night. And
brackets comedian.
But this was interesting, actually. It does pertain to what we're talking about, because they were looking at things like obscure American TV broadcasts that went wrong and saying, oh, and then this happened. And thinking, they never saw this. At least with the things about space hoppers, you thought they might have had a space hopper. Well, but these folk never saw this. They're just shown it and then told to talk about it.
Tarantino's homage to LA circa 1969 with Laurel Canyon, Crosby, Stills and Nash, running into sort of like Woodstock and all the rest of it, is a memory that he hasn't got.
Exactly. And all the way through the film, all the references and all that, how old did you actually have to be to get this in inverted commas? I mean, at one point they had to... I mean, you said to me this was a directorial trope, but they captioned Jay Sebring and Michelle Phillips, not Collins, from Mamas and Papas, and someone else, so you knew who they were.
This is the problem. It reminds me of when you were writing in the music industry and I was simply purchasing said publications.
Purchasing it.
Yeah, that there were so many in-jokes within publications that you didn't feel part of it. So Tarantino it's so self-indulgent that this is being thrown up for him and his mates to sit back and smirk at each other going, did you get it?
I'm surprised it didn't say, where is Beatles band? You know about that?
No.
Well, when I was a young kid, in the NME, every so often in the letters page or gossip column, they'd make this remark, where is Beatles band? And I'm like, what the hell was that? And apparently, at some obscure point in the early 70s, someone from Scandinavia or someone had written into the paper, where is Beatles band?
Which is a joke that bears repetition.
Yes.
But it's also about all these people that talk about... I mean, I sort of get the idea of LPs, old music, vinyl... cartridges.
These people don't play the vinyl. Do you know that? It's
look at it.
a known fact. They just collect it and keep it on the shelf. As for cassettes, I read something about cassettes. Someone saying it's great because, like the human body, it degrades. That is the biggest load of rubbish I've ever heard. There's nothing good about a music format that degrades while you're listening to it. It's not. It's bad. It's not good.
Well, it reminds me of there's a great line from The Outlaw Josie Wales where his character he's knocking about with on his revenge mission, it doesn't matter about the detail, but he picks up a piece of hard rock candy and Clint Eastwood, who plays Josie Wales, looks at him askance, wondering what this is, and he said, no, he said, it's not for eating, he said, it's just for looking through. Which is a bit like all this thing, that you have these things on your wall to impress your mates with your in references and your in...
Yeah, it's like what these Tarantino films like. It's like going into your mate's bedroom when you're a teenager and he's got all this cool shit on his walls, isn't it?
Exactly.
He's got some old license plates from America and some
the complete
pop art or something.
Yeah, the complete works of Yes or Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Well, wait a minute. We'll get onto that next time. But
okay. Or like saying, I miss the days of, Vesta chicken chow mein or Cadbury Smash or Tizer.
But no, when that's not going to become part of the Vesta chow mein... What is that, by the way, for younger, under 30 listeners?
Dehydrated food that you had to rehydrate and boil.
Turned into curry.
Yeah.
Right? Smash, powder that turned into so-called mashed potatoes. That is not going to become part of nostalgia scene. The people who like cassettes also like...
Cartridges better.
Or cartridges, also like avocado and cereal bars and stuff like that. Food's not going to become a nostalgia market.
Well, it is after Brexit, mate.
You've got to eat it. You can't just buy packets of Vesta and have them sitting on your wall.
Listen, mate, you're going to be nostalgic for food after Brexit. Never mind medicine.
I saw a couple of reviews that were saying how great the soundtrack is, and I thought, this is creatively bankrupt because it was the same old stuff, jangly California-type pop music that had been peddled in these films for about, 20 years.
Well, I was just
It's a last gasp putting in Simon and Garfunkel and Deep Purple doing Hush and Mamas and Papas and Paul Revere and the Raiders. It just heard it all before, sorry.
The only thing that was missing for me, if Tarantino could have squeezed Don Letts in here, and this is an in-joke that we're doing amongst ourselves, talking about sound systems.
He could have dragged a sound system on at one of the Hollywood sets, couldn't he? No, but it was so predictable, the soundtrack, really. And then at the end, when things got dark and the murders happened, it was, again, predictably got Vanilla Fudge with their whacked-out version of You Keep Me Hanging On. This has been going on since Nick came in a laundromat with Heard It Through the Grapevine for Levi's in about 1985 or something. It's done.
But not done, mate. It's on the rise, and it's unstoppable. Just to digress further...
They haven't got any of these jangly California-style pop songs left to put in movies anymore.
I beg to differ. Have a look at what's on in the West End at the moment. 99.9% of everything is some throwback musical.
Jukebox musical.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the movies that are out, like Are We Done Yesterday and...
Rocket Man.
Springsteen came out. I've not even gone to see that. I've got no intention of that.
Yeah, I'm going to make you do it. We're going to do that as a podcast.
And the other thing about this nostalgia is, all right, I'll give him his due. He didn't... The Manson family, as they were known, looked...
Which, in fairness, that scene...
They looked sort of blank and threatening out on the ranch, didn't they? And he didn't make them out to be even anti-heroes. He made them out to be dorks. But there's a fascination, again, with things people don't remember. Charlie Manson, Myra Hindley and Ian Brady. Nasty stuff that people are sort of obsessed by. I always think it's vicarious. I think they wish it was them.
What, they wish they were Manson or the victim?
They wish they were the protagonists.
Oh, wow, that's pretty deep.
I've always thought that, but why are they never out of the media?
Is it just a morbid fascination with evil? And I will give Tarantino some benefit out of this, because
That's nice.
He did show the banality of evil with his twist ending.
He did, yeah.
Where it just... People are saying, oh, but he did nothing. He could have made Sharon Tate's character achieve so much more or something else. And it wouldn't have been like that, because it was a night of no consequence where they came back for eating something out. And you wouldn't all of a sudden think, as you're going home, say, tonight, oh, I could be murdered, therefore I'll do something spectacular tomorrow.
No, not
It was that banality of life.
Nostalgia, the biggest thing in nostalgia at the moment is Brexit, isn't it?
Yeah, because like Tarantino, it seems to me that so many of these people that are voting for Brexit are voting for something...
Golden age.
A golden age that never
existed.
existed. Never existed, but we want back.
Yeah.
So...
It's like the 60s, because that whole thing about swing in London, never mind LA and all that in Hollywood, swing in London is well known, no one was involved in that except a few people in Carnaby Street.
John Lennon and a few others.
Yeah. Look at the films of the era, like the black and white kitchen sink dramas. Most people live in miserable lives in industrial towns.
Absolutely.
No nostalgia for that.
No.
Anyway, that's enough nostalgia for episode 30. But we'll do more in episode 31, which will be more about, not Emerson, Lake and Palmer as such, because they're not on tour, but the unbelievable syndrome, medical problem maybe, with
possibly
old people in Britain.
Yeah.
People who should really be home in their bath chairs with anal leakage. Going out to see reformed groups like Camel.
Well, the only thing you have to worry about, it's not like the old days where you worried, I may never see this band again. The only worry you've got is that there are a lot of bands out there that you never wanted to see again that are going to be totally in your face.
Yeah.
I think the only one that won't come around, we've even got holograms now, where Michael Jackson, Elvis, James Brown, where you can actually go and watch these people performing, I guess a snip at £80 a pop.
Yeah. And I want to say that I did mention Camel, but we won't be talking about Camel at all.
No chance.
I meant other bands. We'll get onto that next week. In the meantime, we'll say thanks for listening, but we need to say available on all the usual channels, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Again, I'm not sure what it's called anymore. Google Podcasts. And if you like it, like it.
No, better than that, Robin.
Subscribe, follow us, comment, do all that shit.
If you've actually got this far, or at any stage, what about a bit of interaction? Comment.
Yeah, that's what I just said, comment.
Yeah, for better, for worse.
Yeah, just say what you think.
Yeah.
So on that note, we'll say good night for now, and Nostalgia Part 2 will be coming in a week's
Well, it
time.
could be good morning for somebody listening to it.
We'll do a time check. It's 8:43
PM.
PM. Yeah, we haven't done a time check for ages.
We haven't done a time check.
So at 8:43 PM, we'll say good night.
Thanks for listening.
And goodbye.
Catch you next time.
Bye.